say what you will about Stephen King's endings, we'll get to that in a different special. This time, I'm giving you my top 10 Stephen King openings. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Do have a look around my channel, subscribe if you like what you see here. I've done loads of stuff over the last couple of years, including towards the end of last year, I did my overall ranking of all of Stephen King's books, so do go and check that out. Now this video is this month's book special. For those of you who are regulars around here, you'll know that I've covered all of Stephen King's books. I'm now working my way through his movies, but once a month we do a book special. The last time out, I took you for a little tour of Castle Rock. This time, I'm taking you through my 10 favourite openings to a Stephen King book. I'll get onto those in a few moments, just got a few little things to plug first. So of course, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see here, and maybe click the link to subscribe to my newsletter as well, because just as a thank you for signing up, you get my collection of very short fiction, Mirrored and 10 Tiny Tales of Terror, for free, just as a thank you for signing up. And you get a weekly email with another different short story from me every week and an indie horror author recommendation for you to go and check out. And if you like checking out indie horror authors, do check out my spin-off series / podcast, Constant Writers. You can find the playlist of episodes here on this YouTube channel, or you can find them as podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. And it's me talking to a different indie horror author each episode about their writing, their love of writing, their love of Stephen King. We go in depth on one Stephen King book in particular as well. It's a lot of fun. Do go and check it out. And lastly, you could pick up your copy of the Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book, the book that I published last year, spent 2 years of my life writing, more than 3,000 trivia questions on all things Stephen King. It's sure to keep you busy for at least an hour or so. I mean, there's quite a few pages there. If you've already picked up a copy, thank you so much. If you could leave it a rating or review, I'd really, really appreciate that. You can pick this up on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, links are below, and you can leave it a rating on Goodreads as well. And all of those things would be mega, mega helpful. Okay, so this is this month's book special, and it is Stephen King openings. Now, I mentioned at the very, very start that Stephen King has a bit of a reputation for perhaps not always nailing his endings. I think we'll cover those in a different special, but I wanted to start with something really positive and pick out my personal 10 favourite openings to Stephen King novels. Now, this video, by nature of what we're covering, will have very, very mild spoilers, so it's up to you how far you go with this. I'm not going to spoil the endings of books or anything like that. I'm literally just talking about the openings. But if you want to go into books completely blind, then maybe don't watch this. Otherwise, I think we'll be okay. And of course, don't forget to let me know your favourite openings to a Stephen King novel as well in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But I think it's time to get started. So here are my top 10 openings to Stephen King books. So at 10, we've got The Dead Zone, my all-time favourite Stephen King book. And the opening for me is so powerful because it really effectively sets up the two tracks. We get young Johnny on the ice, having an accident, seeing first glimpses of the talent that is at the heart of this book. And we get that paralleled with Greg Stilson as a Bible salesman kicking a dog to death just because he was a bit barky at him. It's an opening that has stuck with me from the very first time I read this book. And I think it really, really does a wonderful job of setting up those two main characters and giving you something to hold on to for the rest of this novel. Okay, number 9, Dreamcatcher. Now, this is far from King's best book, but it opens really strongly. The 4 friends at the heart of this and their ritual of going hunting every year is really compelling. During the hunt, there's almost a colossal fuck-up, which gets you completely locked in. And it is really strong, right up until the shit weasels arrive. Okay, at 8, Rose Madder. Now, this opening is not for the faint-hearted. We have our main character being beaten so violently that it causes her to miscarry. And then we have a fast forward of a few years, and still being beaten, she finally decides to leave. And then the chase is on, and it sets up the rest of this book. It's brutal, as I said, and very powerful opening. But if you're okay with that, and I guess that is a content trigger warning, domestic violence, heavily in this, you can get through that, then it is a very powerful one and a very effective one for this book. And number 7, The Outsider. This opening is so good. We've got the gruesome crime scene. We've got the absolute dead cert spot on perpetrator. We've got the very, very public arrest of that perpetrator. And the underlying feeling that something's not quite right. At 6, desperation. A whole load of what the fuck is happening going on in the opening pages of this book. Like, where the fuck is everybody? Why is this giant policeman saying tack and literally falling apart? And oh, he's killing people as well now. Cool. At 5, The Regulators. Kind of like its sister book, Desperation, except even more what the fuck. And even more carnage. Just insane. At 4, talking carnage, Cell. I've said before on this channel, the opening 30 pages of this are some of King's best and most gripping writing. I mean, a man bites a dog's ear off, for fuck's sake, in this. Sure, after about page 30, this book becomes a bit dull and directionless, but God, as an opening, if we're talking best openings, then it deserves to be top 5. Absolutely. It's just bonkers. Okay, number 3, The Stand. Now, much as this book, as regular viewers around here will know, is fairly low down on my rankings, I'm not an animal. I can fully admit that the first 200 pages or so of this, where we see the world ending, is comfortably some of King's best ever writing. It is terrifying, it is gripping, it is gruesome, it is horrific. It is everything you would want from a classic Stephen King story. And yeah, the opening for this, I mean, it's Stephen King writing the end of the world. How could that not be anything less than iconic? Okay, number 2, Mr. Mercedes. Now, in terms of there being an event at the start of a Stephen King book that has you hooked in and has you turning those pages faster than ever, I mean, this is the home run. The carnage that's unleashed at the start. I'm saying carnage a lot, aren't I? But the carnage, the horror, the murder, the mutilation that is unleashed at the start of this book is quite something. And while the rest of this book doesn't quite hit those heights, and certainly the subsequent 2 books in this series get less and less interesting, as an opening piece, wow, this is pretty darn good. However, my favourite opening of a Stephen King novel is It. I mean, it's just so good. We're there on that rainy afternoon in 1957, and Georgie Denborough's out in his little Wellington boots and his yellow coat with his paper hat. Paper hat? His paper boat. And then he bumps into that clown called Pennywise. And the horror begins. It's so good. So there we go. This month's book special, my 10 favourite openings of a Stephen King book. Do let me know your favourites in the comments below, because I'd love to hear them. Now, a few things to mention before we part ways for the time being. Of course, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. There's a bunch of other things that you can check out. And, well, I'd just like you to stick around, really. That'd be nice. And while we're talking things to subscribe to, sign up to my newsletter. There's a link in the bottom. You get my mini collection of stories for free just for signing up, and you get a nice email from me once a week. Do check out the Constant Writers podcast. You can either watch it on here or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. And you can pick up your copy of the Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book, available now on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble. And if you've got one already, you said at the start, thank you. Maybe leave it a rating or review on any of those places, or on Goodreads too, because it all really, really helps. Next time, we're back on the movies trail, so I will see you for that.